in court. And to us as practitioners, to us as the value chain players in the sector, we came together and we decided this issue cannot go on. You spend 1 or 2 years waiting for a tender to go through, and I'm sure that the leadership is aware of the challenges that the organization faced in the metering sector. So we formed Africa Smart Meter Association, where we brought in together interested parties in the whole metering value chain. And we held our first conference in October 2021, and I think it was even in the same week that we are having this meeting. So I think this meeting is destined to bring progress, a lot of progress in the metering sector. And the meeting was to see how we can harmonize and remove these court cases to ensure that we can do business in the energy space. So, and it was one of the first meetings in Africa just to discuss about metering and the metering solutions around the energy and water sector. So we have a list of companies that are our members. The list is not very exhaustive because sometimes when you have only one buyer, we tend to have a lot of infighting and creative nature of doing business.
What you do, you also go to the meet an executive summary so that within 20 minutes.
Okay, 20 minutes, okay.
Even less, so that the
Thank you, it's nice to be told the time. Yeah. So I think we have got a list of the members with us there, and you that are active in production of meters or assembly of meters, of which there is a very thin line depending on which tender is available. Sometimes others make themselves manufacturers, others make themselves assemblers. So basically, our report takes us through the questions that we were asked, and maybe my chair can answer the second and the third question very quickly in 2 minutes. Yeah.
Thank you very much. The second question that the Senate, this committee wanted the second question which this committee wanted to find out from the association was the necessary technology and technical expertise to produce smart meters, and if the local manufacturers out there are the required expertise. Maybe in brief, we'd like to say that smart meters technology integrates several advanced components to deliver precise power metering, secure data transmission, and remote management. The technology involves what we call the metrology technology, measure voltage, current, and power using. In terms of this technology, it involves, of course, the creating of what we call a design, and then from a design, then you need to come up with now the technology which will come together. As my colleague has said, one of the biggest challenge and which has been confused is between what we call assemblers and manufacturers. And as an association, what we have been putting together is a framework to be able to separate manufacturers and the assemblers. When you talk about manufacturers, then you are dealing from end to end. You're dealing with somebody who designs a meter, who designs the components inside that meter, who designs the technology, the functionality of that meter, and the uniqueness of it. And then from there now, after the design, you come up with a technical drawing. After you use that technical drawing, then now you go ahead now and come up with what we call the electronics in terms of the PC boards. And then from there now, you come up with other components and how they are going to function. At the end of the day, it requires a lot of research to be able now to come with an original meter. And so what we are seeing a lot, the technology that is involved, you have got what we call now the issues of the data security, what we call also the firmware, and also what we are calling at the circuits, to be able now to come up with that smart meter. All of it is written there. And when you look at now the issue of a smart manufacturer, it handles end-to-end process, including R&D, design, intellectual property, and quality assurance, and assembles most of these, and manufactures most of these components. Now, as it were, in this country, when we look from the association point of view, we don't see that end-to-end. What we are seeing a lot in the country, we are seeing what we are calling assemblers, where you're getting meters, where you're getting parts from different manufacturers, and then now you assemble those parts. Now that is what is happening, and looking at the issues has been the local manufacturers have what we are calling the expertise challenge. And the other challenge has been the investment. So you find a lot of it, because a lot of these parts which make a smart meter are not made locally. So a lot of them get imported, assembled. So what we happening around a lot of it is assembly, or what we call reverse engineering, where you get a particular meter, and then you make another meter looking like that, or you get a meter which is already made and you brand it. So that is the kind of manufacturing that we have, and because the challenge has been two things or three. One of them is expertise, the other one is investment, and so forth. So looking at the number three, question number three, partnership, if there is any.
Before partnership, let's our colleagues who have just come in to introduce themselves.
Okay.
Lomanena, Abbas.
James Lomenen, Senator, Turkana County, member of this committee.
Good morning, my name is Abbas Mohammed, Senator for Jia, a member of the committee.
You can go to number three.
Okay. Looking at number three, partnership with any foreign companies, organization for technology transfer on smart meters production. We have partnered with several organizations, American Chamber of Commerce and Smart Meter Association in Europe, and South America and South Africa, SDS from South Africa. What we are seeing a lot in our country is that a number of these smart meter companies are what we call partners in China and also in India. So we have been conducting a survey of our members to gather information about partnership, and have established with foreign organizations. For example, our members have collaborated with Chinese firms, awaiting more favorable business environment, because a lot of our members would like to go full-fledged in manufacturing, but the challenge has been number four, where we are going to be looking at the challenges that most people would like to go in that direction, but then you find the issues, and one of the biggest challenge being the counterfeit. That becomes a challenge, and especially, and also in terms of the market, you find, as the Secretary General said, the buyer is one. So when there's one person buying, then you find there's a challenge in terms of how do you now start setting up manufacturing companies, and their challenge in terms of the market. So, but we have various ones which have already given us information, like Adview Management Limited, which I'm actually the MD of that company. We have partnered with a company from India, called Electronet in the issue of transfer of manufacturing from there. We also have secure meters, which have also partnered with other companies here. They are also based in UK. We have a company here called Gearbox, collaborating with the Europlaza, a manufacturer of chips, who was promptly discussed by the US ambassador. I think this was discussed last year by the ambassador. I think she visited there. They are partnering together with that other company, Europlaza, in America. So we, as an association, we are carrying out a survey to be able to fully answer this particular question. So I'll invite my colleague to deal with number 4. As we proceed.
Thank you. Just before we invite Kevin, and I think this was one of the most important aspects when I think the first time the ambassador, this was a company that she really showcased doing chips, motherboards in the country. I think she ran videos across when the whole chamber was around. So I think this is an area that they really want to put a lot of efforts in to ensure that those chips that can be used to make meters are really done in this country. So we invite Kevin, who is on the ground with these issues of metering. He's a metering person, and he can tell us the challenges that take us through the challenges.
Thank you, and thank you members for having us here today. Players to come in and do sub-metering in the country. And from that small stint, we saw a lot of innovation and a lot of creativity and a lot of collaboration between the users and the partakers of this energy. So the main challenge that are being faced is the lack of collaboration by the corporate bodies, by the government, the legal framework to enable these companies be able to offer more than is supposed to be offered. Because if you look at the smart metering capability, there's the basic of a smart meter, which is to give and provide information real time on your on your mobile device or on your laptop. But we saw players going over and above that. They're able to give the users analytics. You're able to see and identify what is happening in your home from where you're seated right now. You're able to manipulate and either switch off or be energy efficient. So from that small stunt, which was probably in less than 24 months, we were able to see partakers go over and above what major players were doing from since they started business. So it's from this shakedown by these corporate members and the government that has disabled some of these individuals to be able to provide more value, and the challenges that are associated with operating a business here in Kenya. So there are so many things we need to look at so that we can be able to devolve this institution from the main utility company to now the sub-metering company, so that they can be able to offer over and above. And then it's through this that we can be able to also see more players coming in. We can be able to see more value being created. We can be able to see more innovation. We can be able to pull in members from other institutions to come in and offer an addition to what is there. So you look at the challenges that are there that have been spelled out on the document that is in front of you, and we can see how we can be able to streamline so that this will no longer be a challenge, and we can be able to now have an efficient energy management system that goes beyond energy. Thank you.
Maybe to just add what Abdul clearly say, those 6 issues there, and maybe the first one is standards. No smart meters manufacturing standards approved. the need for framework arrangement with big off-takers. That's another challenge. Just the research, the need for the universities and research institutions. Funding of that research need to be looked at. Counterfeit is a big issue, as I said earlier. And this is something which, if is not factored, manufacturing becomes a very big challenge. And then, of course, the investment required. And then the legal framework. I think that is really the issue. James?
Okay. And I think when we look at our point 5 and 6, some efforts that were made by the government, especially removal of VAT on the PCB boards and motherboards, which was a good gesture from the finance bill of 2019, although it's still taking time to implement. But what I want, what my take from this meeting is that we have investors. The investors are there in the metering ecosystem. And to me, we have got one of the best brains in the sectors. We have got the technology in the sector. If we were able to make laptops, then to make meters is not something is not out of this space. And the challenge is that you have seen now, even universities are trying to manufacturing laptops. And this is the way we want to go in metering, than having one off-taker of 90% of the meters. So it squeezes everyone to adhere to a certain direction. And I think the business of that organization is to sell power. Even ETR machines, they are not sold by KRA directly. There are players who do that. And you can see even in the metering ecosystem, the delay in connecting people in meters is a very big, huge loss. I worked in Kenya Power. I was head of strategy and change Kenya Power some time ago, nearly 10 years ago. And the losses that make by waiting, I mean, this is something that businesses like ours can be able to do. And the team, even the members who are not here, their biggest angle they are coming is that let's have a framework agreement of how to handle metering so that we can invest in the sector. Right now it's about tender. There's a tender going on. Everyone is just waiting. Now, if you are waiting for a tender to go through so that you do something, then no one is investing so much. So you just invest very little in that sector. Secondly, I think the area that we need to improve is a stakeholder engagement and discussion. This last 2 years ago, we wrote to the Minister of Trade when we were looking at the issues of, even before we held our conference, when we were looking at the issues of taxation of motherboards. And I think we really need to bring our sector players together. Bill Owoga. You know, when you have one supplier, there's a lot of fear to be seen on a table. And during the conference, you could see we had the likes of the big players. You could not see others, who are suppliers, did not come for the conference. The people who wanted business are the ones who came to the conference. The Safaricoms and all that. But the people who are doing the business already did not attend the conference. So when you have one supplier, when one buyer, you don't want even to be seen like you want to discuss that. So I think that's something that I would like us to remove. And there's big opportunity. Even establishing as SEZ zones like Konza, we have had players who have come and they have looked at the last 3-4 years what has been happening. And I think they are willing to invest. And in fact, even some have already gone the process of purchasing land, but they don't purchase in the name of metering because of the one supplier who is there. Otherwise, when there's a big one, so they are calling themselves investment firms, but they are just waiting. So those are the challenges of one supplier moving. And at the same time, as a smart meter technology grows, the issue of having only one transaction player of like the telcos, and I think there are more ideas around token generation that even can move away from the M-Pesa circulation, of which our chair runs a company which does that, and he also does that. So I think there is an opportunity even to invest in more technology that will make it easier for even customers to transact without going through the normal channels. What do we see as an organization? Job creation is there, and yes, we are 7 years. What we see as an organization, job creation is there, cost saving is there, innovation is there, and this is what the ambassador was really talking about when he talked about innovation in the sector. He picked the issue of metering and motherboards being produced in the country, and we can be the center for the region. Tanzania now, they are saying, I think you have an office in Tanzania, and if you are not buying the local meters, then you cannot play in that space. Ethiopia the same way. They are starting to manufacture meters. If you are not in that space, then you cannot play in that space. So I think the rest is about the policy and regulation environment. We thought the net metering proposals will address investment, and I don't think they have addressed any investment in that. And I think what is important is patriotism. I think the leadership here, the Senate leadership here, we are not asking for much. We are just asking for the open, competitive we do that is not based on tendering. Because tendering, you will not be able to open a factory just waiting for one tender to come through. And let customers, when you get connected, get your meter within 10 minutes. I mean, get your meter within the installation phase, not having to wait for 3 months to get connected to a meter. I think that's an area where I think as part of patriotism, as part of Buy Kenya, Build Kenya, we can be able to do it here. If we have made laptops, a meter is not something very complicated that we cannot do. And especially now with the artificial intelligence, the meters can really improve how we do business and how even improve the quality of life in Kenyans. So I think, to me, that is my remark here, and we are here to hear from you, and we want to establish a collaborative. We collaborate between your leadership and us. We want to employ people, we want to generate revenue, we want government to get that, to be part of that revenue, and we create employment as per this document. Maybe we'll give 1 minute each member just to say something before we hand over to the leadership.
Yeah, I think session and be able to say that we did this within a short time, but there is more information on these questions that we are also carrying out surveys, and we may be able to provide more information, especially on individuals and what they are doing and what everybody is doing, especially in this country on smart metering. The other thing, as our secretary has said, it is also important to look at the supply chain, looking at the entire supply chain, that there could be what we call manufacturers, distributors, and retailers. So that at least at the end of the day, something falls along the way. But currently, what is happening is that one big order, 2 billion order is given to one company, and of course, that money maybe does not even come to Kenya, and we don't end up benefiting along the supply chain. What we are looking at is if there could be regulations that if you are a manufacturer, then you appoint distributors, then there are retailers, so that everybody in the country, including those who are in remote places like in Turkana, there can be retailers who can also benefit from the supply chain of that business. In that way, then you see that everybody will be involved. The second thing we also wanted to say as I close is the issue of number 10, that is details of policy and the report of the local meter manufacturing. I think currently, apart from the net metering, which was an attempt of EPRA, there is very little which has been able to be done, and we will be able, we will be very happy to contribute in this area, in coming up with policies and regulatory to support and encourage local manufacturing and secure it, and especially secure it from counterfeit, and also increase the market. The other thing, of course, is looking at the market in terms of East Africa market. And currently, the East Africa market, we are talking about maybe 600 million population, and it is an opportunity if they also in the border issues could be solved, so that at least manufacturing can happen here, but then it can be targeting on the region. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone, Kevin?
Yes, so I'd like to encourage the members of this committee to allow us to open up and show you the possibilities that simple government frameworks and simple policies can be able to open up opportunities and can be able to provide more than you can ever imagine in this sector, and be able to solve the problems that we're encountering in terms of wastage and non-accountability of the funds through metering, and so many vices that we have going out there. Please invite us, let us open up your eyes, let us show you the capabilities of our members and what this smart metering association can be able to provide. Not only in energy, but we're talking about water and across all board. So thank you.
Thank you so much, and we want it to be a discussion, and also we want to learn from you as a leadership also. Thank you.
Honorable members.
Point number 4, when you say that there are no manufacturing standards approved by EPRA, what do you mean? We don't have any standards for smart meters in the country, even at CAPES.
There are standards for a smart meter.
Use your mic, please.
There are standards for a smart meter as a meter. We have got approved meters which have come from out. But in terms of what standards a manufacturer need to go through to be able to manufacture in terms of a meter, issues like QA, to be able to govern. That's why when you look at most of our tenders today, the standards being mentioned there are international standards, but not local standards. So that, I think, is what we are talking about.
Would that be the reason for that? Could it be the fact that there is no manufacturer in Kenya? Because you can't set a standard for an industry that does not exist.
Yes. I think that's what we said, sir, that's what we said earlier, that basically this is an evolving sector, and some things overtake legal framework. Some things happen, then the legal framework comes. So I think we think this is the right time, because there's so much coming in, and one of the biggest challenge we have at the moment is that we feel there's also a lot of dumping, a lot of smart meters going to be dumped, and especially if we don't have our own framework.
Okay. Lastly, Chair, there is a move or a proposal to have more electricity suppliers to break up the monopoly of Kenya Power effectively. How will that impact your industry? Because you're complaining about one big off-taker, and the regime is now going to change, that people will be allowed to supply power outside of Kenya Power. How will that impact you?
And take it. I think this will open up the market for growth for us, because
Please solve your problems. That's what I want to know.
yes, it will solve the problems. It will open the market for us, because everything will now narrow down to metering. how you sell the power from here to here, how you bill from here. It will just be around billing and giving that customer experience from that meter, from the phone or wherever it is. So we are open to that market, and that market, it can only be sustainable if there will be proper billing and better customer experience. So we are very much ready, and it will only be driven by a proper metering and billing proposition going forward. So we are happy. We are happy for it, although it must also it has also have its own challenges. But as we are ready to provide the metering from each angle.
Okay, and as an association who has pointed out some of the gaps in the legal framework, do you have a proposal for any amendment to the law that we can look at?
Yes, we have proposals, and I think we didn't have. We can forward it. We are trying to consolidate, and we are especially even written through the Ministry of Trade, which we can redirect to you also as part of
so
it.
The ministry does not undertake legislation.
Yes, that is what we want to give you, and I think give us a few days, we will be able to give you what we want to be legislated.
In fact, the reason why I'm asking, Chair, you will know that this committee has actually processed an amendment to the energy bill to deal with the issues that arose out of our inquiry into the independent power producers. So when you have an engagement with a committee like this, we are the ones with the capacity to be able to help you when it comes to legislative frameworks. So if you take it to the ministry, you're wasting time. So I'm hoping that you will forward to us a legislative proposal. You specify the current law, how it impacts the industry, how it can be better, and then you propose the amendments. This committee has the capacity to be able to help the industry.
We are very excited with that. We were groping in the dark, so yeah. We are very excited with this area. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other member who would want to make an intervention? Senator Abbas, Senator Romney.
Just one clarification. I want to thank the group from the African Smart Meters Association. You see a very large group of 9 members, 9 companies. One thing you have not said is actually, you say that we will have local manufacturers, we manufacture smart meters locally. We will be able to produce the many advantages you have said. But of course, you have not committed any, how much are we going to reduce the cost of all these things? If you want to, if someone wants to buy a meter from you guys locally, and what which is important, what is the difference? What is the advantage?
Maybe I can answer that.
Yeah.
The first thing, I think we have clearly defined that in terms of real manufacturing, from our own records, we don't have a company that is doing end-to-end. What we are seeing a lot here is what we are calling assembly.
Yes.
And what we are seeing a lot is that in terms of assembly, currently the pricing only will come down most likely by about 15 to 20% if you do local assembly. But then the biggest challenge with that is what we said earlier, is a counterfeit. That now you could have that looking like locally manufactured, but the Chinese can actually also bring another one looking the same, but then also sell it at a cheaper price. So I think the whole of whatever need to be, to come up with certification. And that is what we are now looking for, a framework for certifying. So that at least when you buy a meter, because like our colleague here was saying, the biggest issue of a meter is to measure and measure accurately. And so that is what I think the framework of certifying of those, and then maybe go ahead. But I think looking at the bigger picture is, apart from the pricing come down, is actually what we are calling employment, economic growth. And maybe also looking at, there's a lot of money currently, if we were to buy all meters locally, we'll be saving like maybe over $100 billion in foreign exchange. So this is something that is a positive thing.
it's $100 million. I think that's a minimum that is spent every year on around the metering ecosystem.
Very good. But you're putting this,
Yeah.
you see $100 million.
Yes, I think around 700,000 to 800,000 meters are imported every year. Yeah.
And probably to add to that, if you look at what is happening right now, we are importing a meter that has been manufactured from China.
Right.
We are employing and enabling the whole ecosystem for that meter to be manufactured in China. Suppose we decided to do that and enable either manufacturing or assembly here in Kenya.
Yeah.
All we need is that smart microprocessor, which will cost probably $5 from China. Everything else will be employing all the people in the ecosystem to enable that meter now come into play. We are talking about anybody who is in the plastic manufacturing, anybody who is doing a lot of things in that ecosystem, and we'll still have that meter at below price. Thank you.
And if you can see many of the meters now that were brought in 3 to 4 years back, they are not localized. So you're finding some of them are freezing because of the heat, yeah, especially in those boats. There's a lot of return, there's a lot of meters that have been replaced because of those kind of incidents. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think the concerns the chairman is that the Kenya Power companies complain about the quality of our meters, local meters. So what's assured with this company, I mean, the African state class? Because actually the major concerns when we ask Kenya Power why they are not using local meter, they say the quality is good.
Maybe I can answer that.
Yeah.
I think the first thing as an association, first of all, is to be able to have what we call a framework of regulation, of what we call self-regulation of the sector. You know, when you have a sector where everybody is coming in and everybody is bringing everything, there must be some framework. That's why we are looking at a way to be able to have a way that if our members are not doing the right thing, then we can have a way where they do the framework and be banned from being able to be part of it. But the quality is a big issue, and what we talked about here is what we talked about, a legal framework in terms of a QA, in terms of an R&D calculation. For example, when you're using a meter in your house, you know, when you get a bill, even how sure are you that that bill is even correct? Because in terms of when was that meter calibrated last? You know, so these are some of the things that are proposed in our legal framework that were being asked. We have made some proposal into the change in terms of QA and research and also distribution of the meters, smart meters. And what else? What he was also talking about in terms of also data. One of the biggest challenge we have now, especially meters that are being brought in, they still have ability to report outside. So basically you have a meter here, but it is actually reporting to a computer or a server in China. So in terms of data protection, we are not secure. So that is why now we are bringing all these things that yes, even if the meters are coming out, can the software also come locally? Because the smart meter has got so many parameters. The other thing is issues of communication, which is a big issue which need to be factored as well. Kenya Power currently is paying maybe over 200 million yearly to pay maybe Safaricom in terms of communication. But is it possible that we can come up with a different tariff for meters communication? Because now when you load that 200 million, then who is going to pay that bill? It's the same guy who you are also charging. So we also need to look at that factor of communication. Can there be a tariff for meters which is lower than a normal tariff for this other communication? So I think those are real issues.
I think, Chair, you see, the funds will be imported from outside. So the cost of implications of importing, the taxes, the DATs, all these things, if you add all, I think it is more expensive than what they come from outside. Is it not so? So how are you going to take care of those things?
Take that. I think there is a big misconception in this country that when you manufacture locally, it's cheaper. And this is where we must rally for patriotism. You cannot compete with the energy cost in Egypt. You cannot compete, but it has to be intentional to grow this market. And it is very sad if Kenya Power is the same one that can come and tell us that there are no quality manufacturers here. And he's a sole supplier. It's a failure on his part. We have tried to call him on the table. Tell us in the next 2 years, these are the kind of meters you want. And honestly, we have all the technology here. We have everything we can do here. But why should I invest in a state-of-the-art machine? Well, I know 70-80% I'm not going to get that tender. And secondly, this year you are taking this range of meters. Next year you have a totally different range of meters. So I would really like to have them on a table. That's not a good statement from the guy who buys 90% of the meter. It is a failure on his part to bring in. I just want to take an example of the military forces in the US. They call their manufacturers and tell them this is what we want to produce. This is what the kind of gadget we want to produce. Then can you go and bid and come and tell us this is what you are producing? And that's the way it is. But I think as part of manufacturing locally, we cannot maybe guarantee it will be cheaper, but it will create jobs in this country. Okay. And I think this is what really we must rally our country around. We won't compete with China, but you will see that electronics engineer will employ more than 6-7 electronics engineers to do some certain jobs. And this is what we want Kenya Power to bring in. And there was a time in the Buy Kenya, Build Kenya, we were allowed even as local manufacturers to give even 25% more on the pricing, just to cater for the local manufacturing and the dynamics of our local economy. Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much for that session. I want to say that the commitment of this committee is to ensure that we use the market dynamics to ensure that Kenyans do not only get quality, but also at the same time to be able to create employment. We know that that's one of the major challenges we have in this country. However, this committee is also alive to the fact that we must create an enabling environment, and therefore it is our commitment that we delink the supplies of smart meters from the Kenya Power and bring it back to the consumers, so that it will become a free market where somebody can come up with innovative technology whereby we can be able to compete using the market dynamics. Having said that, we know that it's also imperative that we come with standardization whereby we can be able to set the minimum threshold that must be met by any manufacturer, and moving upwards that any manufacturer can be able, using innovative technology, to offer more and more value into what they're manufacturing. This can only be possible if we delink, as you've said, I like to put it, the manufacturing, the tendering from Kenya Power, so that we can encourage innovators, investors to put their money there. And also at the same time, we are also aware that we have a regional market that we as Kenyans can also invest in. However, we must start from somewhere, and the commitment of this committee is to ensure that we set the framework in line with the inquiry that we did. We realized that this is one of the areas which has been dominated by a few individuals who have taken monopoly. And like my fellow senator here said, we want to ensure that the monopoly of Kenya Power, which is one of the factors that makes electricity very expensive, with up to 26% transmission losses, we are alive to the fact that we can bring the cost down, and by so doing also create a more conducive environment for investors, create more jobs, but at the same time also promoting technology locally. Therefore, I want to take this opportunity to assure you that this committee is prepared and committed to walk the journey with you. We will partner in this one, and that is why, in line with what Senator Sifuna said, give us the recommendations that you think we need to implement in terms of legal framework. We are legislatures, that's one of our roles and functions, and we'll ensure that we push this sector forward, because we know that there is a lot that we can do to ensure that energy is not only accessible but more reliable, and we cannot do that if we do not embrace the local technology. We also been in touch with some of the universities locally, and we know that like Kimathi University is doing the microchip manufacturing, and we do not understand why we cannot create for them the opportunity to promote local talent, local production, while providing them with a basic market on this smart meter. Therefore, this is a continuous engagement. We are very happy for you appearing here, and we'll be looking forward to engaging with you from time to time. I think together we can pull it in the same direction, and by so doing we can achieve something for Kenyans. And let me give you this opportunity to make your closing remarks as I thank you for appearing here. Karibu, Chair.
Of a good conversation. And I want to thank your team of just taking time to listen to us, and patriotism to grow this market. Metering is one of the biggest enablers for the economy. And when it starts with electricity, because also we do metering across the off-grid areas, like we have projects in the Turkana area, where the key thing to make that project sustainable is about the metering that we'll do. So I think it's the first time we have been called for this forum. It's the first time we have hosted a conference 3 years ago at the same time. And very soon we will also want to create a dialogue and to bring in even all the players to try uoga, because people are just scared to come out because there's only one supplier. But it's very encouraging to see that we are here to discuss how we can create jobs for these innovators and for these young people in this country. I really appreciate, and we are going to continue coordinating with your team. We will offer all the support. And I want to thank you. My association was quiet, but the last few days, everyone now wants to be a member of it, which is very important. And I think we'll build capacity around now, how do we legislate, how do we advocacy in this area. So thank you very much for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me also encourage you, wherever you feel that we can be assistance to in terms of creating legal framework, any input that you add to us will unleash our input, and together I believe that we can set this country to move in the right direction, because I believe that, as you like to put it, being patriotic has to start somewhere, and this committee is engaged to just do that. Thank you very much for coming, and